What is something you can no longer enjoy due to a bad experience? Georgia Maester. Had a really bad experience once. If I even just smell black licorice, my mouth will start to salivate like I'm going to vomit, Exorcist style everywhere. Apple juice. Spent too much time in hospitals growing up and every meal was served with apple juice. Roller coasters with loops, but specially untamed at Canobie Lake Park. Went on it 3 years ago and leaned forward on the loop. The momentum caused me to hit my head on the shoulder harness and black out for a few seconds. The concussion after that was brutal. Orange Gatorade. That's my go-to flu or food poisoning drink. It ruins it for me outside of that. I used to love chicken tikka. Our ex-co-worker went through a period of not washing for several days at a time and the smell was really close to chicken tikka. The smell of chicken tikka now makes me feel sick. Any pre-prepared food with any kind of shellfish. When I was 8 I had a bowl of cream of crab soup that didn't have a piece of shell removed. Had rectal bleeding and minor surgery for a small hole. Never gonna trust it again. Fake cherry smell. I can do cherry candies. But the air freshener type cherry scent triggers the worst visceral reaction. I start sweating. Heart races. And I immediately start prepping to throw up. When I was 5 I had to have a tonsillectomy. It was in the early 90s and they knocked you out with gas. Because I was a kid. They let me pick the flavor of kids masks. The nurse who prepped me for surgery probably thought I wouldn't remember, but she smashed the mask over my nose and mouth and held me down while I struggled until the gas knocked me out. There have only been a few times where I've smelled that again and I react the same way every time. Jumping on trampolines. Just because I tore my ACL 3 times. Hot dogs. 15-hour flight. 3 days of food poisoning. I cannot eat hot dogs or plain food under any circumstance. Eating bananas. Me and my friend were at lunch and as he bit into his banana it crunched. He looked at it and the center of the banana was infected with a red crunchy fungus. This ruined bananas for me. There are some beautiful hiking spots in the Pacific Northwest. But I was a wilderness search and rescue canine handler for 12 years. And a few of these beautiful places were the locations of suicides. I just can't see those spots as places of joy anymore. Eggo waffles. Ate them every morning before late elementary and middle school. I was never a morning person. So shoving frozen waffles covered in butter and maple syrup at 6 AM while horribly underslept was never enjoyable. And now I can't eat them because I flash back to the general feeling of dread from every morning. I can still feel the knots in my stomach. Strawberry Pop-Tarts. That's the only thing we had besides MREs on an outpost in Afghanistan for a month. I can't look at one without feeling sick. Domino's pizza. I got a mouthful of clumped hair when I bit into a slice. I hate hair in my food. It's one of my gross out factors that will kill my appetite. With that pizza, I brushed it off the best I could because I was starving and grabbed another slice. Mouthful of hair again. I had to pick long strands of hair out of my teeth. No more Domino's. It was probably an isolated incident. But now my brain equates Domino's with hairy pizza and I can't order from them anymore. Taco soup. This lady made it for us but found out later she has horrible cooking habits like cross-contaminating cooked chicken and shredding it on the same board you had it raw. Or using long expired taco seasoning and who knows what else. I got food poisoning and puked it all up. The horrible smell I can just think about and get nauseated. Thankfully I can still eat regular tacos. But taco seasoning outside of actual tacos I cannot do. Playing the violin. I was in 6th grade and just started to learn the violin. My family didn't make much but my mom saved some money to rent a violin for me. I go to the class and the teacher was under the impression that I knew the basics. Which I didn't. I did take a class before this one, but I didn't learn much from it, probably cause I was a crazy kid. So I try to tell the teacher that I have no idea where the notes on the violin are, but he just didn't get it. Then we get a quiz where we have to play the scale, and one by one each student plays it and he remarks after each one. Good job, A+. Now it's my turn. I tried my best but I couldn't do it. My teacher said, well, that was not good, and continued on. Needless to say, I joined choir the next day. Apple cider. Drank too much once and threw up. Whenever I drank apple cider after that point, it makes me feel nauseous, as I can never forget that taste. Grim stuff. Going out and amp, having a drink alone. Got drugged. Almost died. Now I only drink if I'm at home. Omelets. I ate one while somewhat nauseous as a 6-year-old. Immediately had to be sick. Now I can't even handle the scent of them. Most of the Taco Bell menu when I mixed it with copious amounts of alcohol and later found it on my back porch. I'm glad my drunk ass never ordered anything I actually liked. Pink Floyd. Which super crushes me. An abusive ex was super into them. I'll try again in a few years. Any type of food that looks like it should be soft or mushy. X. Mashed potatoes. Because too many times I've taken a bite and been met with something not soft or mushy hiding inside. Seriously. It makes my heart race just thinking about it. When I was 15, I decided one night when I was bored and alone to eat at the French restaurant near my house. This was the first time I'd been to a proper restaurant without my parents, so I was sort of excited. Everything was going well until the waiter asked if I would like a bread roll with my entree. Being new to this sort of thing and not exactly flush with cash, I asked, "Is it free?" Well, it was like I called his grandma a whore, because he got really angry and launched into a big speech, swinging his arms everywhere, about how nothing is free in life, blah blah blah. I finished my meal there, but I've never eaten at a French restaurant since. If invited out to one, I make excuses. Cliff jumping. Bit part of my tongue off because I accidentally had my mouth open after realizing I was making a beeline towards a large rock. Thankfully I missed it by about 2 to 3 feet. But that nub of my tongue did not survive. Luckily it grew back because the chip was barely small enough to where it could heal. Extremely lucky things didn't end up worse for me that day. But you can rest assured I'm never doing that again. Watch any Godzilla movie. When I was 8 years young, my mother rented the movie Godzilla that I was waiting for months to see. She played the movie and leave the room. She went out to buy groceries. Turns out it wasn't Godzilla. It was hardcore porno movie that the renter misplaced, and I watched the first half confused because I thought at some point I was going to see Godzilla. Then my mother came back from the store and realized what happened. She went back to the movie store to storm it, I believe. Car hanky panky is ruined for me. One time had a cop pull up next to the car. Can't come back from that one. Chili. One night I ate it for dinner and later threw it up in bed. To this day I don't know my reasoning, but in my drowsy state I decided to just go back to sleep, and I woke up laying in a mix of vomit, chunks of meat, and beans. I learned ADR at film school. What they will do is, if the film was shot in a place that was too noisy, they re-record the actors' lines later in a studio and put it back on the visuals. If it's not done right, the actor's mouth doesn't line up quite right with the spoken dialogue. That ruined movies and TV shows for me, because now I notice any ADR that is poorly done and I can't concentrate on the movie. Either maybe that wasn't really due to a bad experience, but I no longer enjoy many movies and TV shows. Orange soda. When I was pregnant I had to do a glucose test. I needed to drink this orange drink. It tasted like straight orange syrup. It was the worst. Now anytime I taste orange soda it's all I can think of. The sea. I used to love swimming all day, but one day I almost drowned when I was a kid. It was never the same afterwards. Found a cockroach in my Burger King of my home country. Cochabamba, Bolivia. There the health regulations are not as good as here in the US, so I couldn't do much. But that did pretty much make me hate Burger King. One of the better coffee shops in my town. I went there on a date with a guy in high school. Then was assaulted by him in the parking lot. Smoking weed. I was 17. Smoking in my friend's room he was renting from a man named Juan Carlos, and all of a sudden a SWAT team came and busted down the door and looked around at a couple of white kids, us, and said none you look like Juan Carlos, then proceeded to empty my bag, and needless to say, I super high and freaked out. Ever since then, I get that same feeling when smoking weed. Tequila. Can't even stand the smell after a whole bottle intoxication. One particular female name. I used to love it. Always thought I'd name my daughter this name if I had one. Then a woman with this name tried to start an affair with my, thankfully oblivious, husband, sent him provocative photos under the guise of "do you think guys like these types of photos from women?" Asked him what he liked in bed and how she just happened to love those same things. etc. It ruined the name for me. It makes me irrationally angry every time I hear that name now, which makes me even more mad because I loved the name for so long. Walking. My leg had to be amputated. Cool Ranch Doritos. Adding it to liqueur did that. I took an art class in middle school that I really loved until a guy started pinning me against a sink in the supply room and groping me. I wasn't particularly skilled. It was just something I enjoyed until he ruined it. Using a mandolin after slicing off the top of my finger. In 1981, when I was 15, I was seduced by a man twice my age and had hanky-panky for the first time. He fricked me without using a condom. Why would you use a condom if you're having gay sex? And at the time, it was the greatest feeling I ever had. Until only a few months later, there were stories about GRID, gay-related infectious disease. Now AIDS. I convinced myself that I had to have contracted it, and was scared to death that I was going to die. I went so far into the closet I entered Narnia, and didn't have hanky-panky for another 10 years. Finally, a test became available, and I found out I was HIV DART. I was relieved. But I was still reticent to both coming out as a gay man and to having sex. Finally, when I went into Peace Corps, I decided this had to stop. I came out as being gay, and life changed for me. Yes, I did have a bad experience, but I now enjoy sex. But for 10 years of my life, I was scared to death from it. I used to enjoy beer until my roommate became a full-blown alcoholic. Now I drink only on special occasions. It took all the joy out of it watching my friend basically try to drink himself to death and to hear him rationalize all the problems alcohol got him into. I can't play Overwatch anymore. If I try to, I just get really depressed and will probably start sobbing by the end of the night. RIP the closest friend I ever had. Carried me for 4 seasons. Best Winston main I've ever met. I was probably 8 or 9 and was eating mint chocolate chip ice cream. I was going to bed and I remember just barely waking up and being able to cover my mouth to be able to run to the bathroom and let it all up. I can't drink anything mint chocolate chip related anymore. Shakes. Cookies. Those little mint chocolate candy bars. Alcohol and cigarettes. My dad beat me so hard one time while smelling of alcohol and cigarettes that occasionally the smell of either brings back that memory of lying on the bed broken and bleeding. Edit. Thanks for caring all. It was a long time ago and I'm okay now. There was a band I loved. And I mean loved. One night I went to a concert after waiting years to see them. I was 19. After the gig one of their roadies asked me and my friends if we wanted to meet them, which we said yes because we were such big fans. So naive. Dart. When we got backstage, one of the roadies pointed out a room and told me to go in there because the lead singer wanted to meet me. Anyway, he locked the door and proceeds to do things even though I told him to stop. I couldn't get to my friends because there was a party going on in the room next door and they couldn't hear me. And he had locked the door. I have never been able to listen to their music since. This was also 15 years ago, so way before Me Too or things like that, so I just blamed myself for not knowing any better. I just genuinely thought they wanted to meet a fan.
Hi there. Look, if you enjoyed the video, well, why not go ahead and hit that like and subscribe to Reddit Stories. In fact, if you want to see even more responses to this thread, well then, take a look. There's the link in the description below. And remember, show some love to those authors while you're there. And I look forward to seeing you next time.